Feature Friday.
The freshest. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Feature Friday Plus. Today we are joined by Sam Concepcion, like he said.
Yes.
Hey, what's up?
All
Thanks
good,
for having
man.
me.
Nah,
It's
thanks
a
for coming on.
pleasure.
What is that jumper you're wearing? It's like the galaxy.
It's
Looks good.
nice. It's tie-dye.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's
Nice.
it's a little bit of color in this otherwise plain background. You know what I'm saying?
No, it looks great on you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but thanks for coming on, brother. We were just we were listening to Nonstop like a couple of days ago, and
Sweet.
Great
yeah,
track.
it was just I was like I jumped at the bit of having a chance of having a word with you because it's funny enough we were doing a podcast on kind of like power vocals last week,
Mhm.
and from the Philippines. And dude, everybody fucking went crazy. They're like, Sam, please check out Sam. And we're like, okay, well, let's check out Sam. But I had heard of you first because of Nonstop. Um, so I wasn't very familiar with your previous work.
So we did a little research,
And
and
bloody hell, you have
my
a resume,
God.
brother.
you got a long career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been blessed to have started doing this pretty young. I would say younger than most people. And I'm glad I still get to do it. You know.
Can you maybe because I like to sometimes read a bit of like the of the background of people that you kind of know you look up to and stuff, but given the amazing chance that we got to speak to you, what's what was kind of your intro into the industry and your thoughts at the time being so young?
Yeah. No. Well, I've always loved music. I love to perform, right? And I'm the type of kid that the family made to sing in parties and stuff like that. Uh, so I was introduced to it at a super young age, just really exposed to singing and dancing and performance in general. And I think my first breakout into the scene was when I won a singing competition in ABS-CBN, the
Mhm.
So
channel where.
Little Big Star, was it that one?
That's right. Yeah. I think I would say winning that competition was the start for me. Um, Although I did start way before that. I guess as a kid,
Mhm.
doing commercials in theater and all of that.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. We read a little bit about your story and how it all came about for you. And one of the things that struck with me the most was, your theater background. That's something that you don't get to come across often. I trained in musical theater here in London, so
Wow.
whenever I get the chance to like geek out about musicals and stuff, I'll take it. you know.
Yeah. Sure.
It's really cool.
Same.
Tell me about how it all started with the theater as a kid, because it's super different as a child than when you are introduced to it later on in your life.
Mm.
So tell me how was it for you, and how different was the change from theater into television, because it's day and night type of difference. So tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
You're right. Um, well, I think I was about 8 years old when um the managers the company that manages me today are
Oh
the
wow.
same one who found
Oh
me
my
in
God,
a small show as an 8-year-old kid, as a
that's
third grader
amazing.
in some performance. And yeah, they own theater company called Trumpets. And they asked me to audition for a role in an original musical called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is based on the Narnia books,
Uh-huh.
Oh nice.
originally made here. And so I auditioned and I got in, and that was the start for me. It was kind of learn as you go kind of experience for me. I think being that young kid, I didn't have much experience. So I was kind of I was having the experience while I was doing it, and I just instantly fell in love with it, and I kept going and kept doing more shows, and training in that space. And so I guess transitioning into mainstream pop music was kind of a bit of a culture shock at first, discipline wise, technique, and all that. But I guess uh, I was lucky enough to be young enough to be malleable, to adapt easily. And so that's kind of just how it was for me. Just
You know,
had to adapt to things while I was doing it.
it's interesting, Sam, because one of the things, and you mentioned it there, kind of becoming malleable, and I think a lot of
Mm.
people attribute that a lot to their younger years, right? It's like when you're younger, you can learn a language easier. When you're younger, you can learn other skills easier. But I think it's also, I think personality types have such a big deal to do with it, and the fact that you started in theater, just me thinking here out loud, I feel like seeing my sister do theater from the start, and other kids that kind of get involved in theater. I think theater does a really good job of making you have to adapt on the move,
I agree.
on the go. So it's no surprise that then you were able to make the jump into mainstream media so fast.
Yeah, that's true. Most of my training came from that world, and I'm still those are my foundations, and I still get to use those techniques and experience. They're still really valuable to me today.
I
I think theater taught me uh, how to own the stage, how to command presence on stage, how uh, to just the confidence in general to be on stage, the training that is required, the to how to prepare, how to interpret songs, all of that stuff I learned from training from theater, and that's really very valuable to me.
I actually feel it's an unfair advantage for the
I
people that
agree.
have a musical theater background, dude, because you notice it sometimes in the mainstream where someone like yourself that has a background, such a strong foundation, and then you look at perhaps other people that didn't have the chance to have a foundation in theater in such a regimented environment, and you just think it's like,
Yeah,
fuck, dude,
it's
even though
unfair.
it's hard, but people that have that advantage is unfair, dude, because it's like they become so good at adapting, and you guys become so good at learning the
Minuscule details really quickly.
that make a difference, because in theater it's all about amplifying emotions and
That's right.
amplifying performance. So it's no wonder that speaking to you now, like seeing the level you have reached, that you did come from musical theater, because it's a brilliant kind of like starting ground.
Yes, it is. I wouldn't say it's required, definitely.
No.
Especially in this day and age where you can just get super famous on TikTok
Yeah,
and
literally.
yeah. But yeah, I would say it really helped me out a lot, and I don't get to do musicals as much anymore, as aside from the one that I did in 2020,
Uh-huh.
having a 10-year break in between.
Whoa.
But
Oof.
you get to do it. I it's like it's still great. It's
It
like coming back
is.
home, and I love it. I do.
Uh, uh, you know, uh, Joseph the Dreamer being a,
That was the
you
one,
know,
right? You did in 2020, Joseph the Dreamer, was it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's
yeah, being being based on a biblical story, and the whole idea of a revival show, because it was
Hmm.
originally written in 89, right? It was
Yes.
originally performed then. How did it feel to be part of something that had already marked history in the Philippines? Like, you know a part that I really don't know much about the Filipino theater industry, so
That's why
tell
we're
me.
so intrigued by it,
Yeah.
brother, because here in London is obviously a staple
Mhm.
about the culture. Theater and London just go hand in hand.
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
so interesting to learn regarding the theater world in other industries, like in the Philippines.
So how did
Yeah.
it feel to be part of
So
that project?
it was amazing. If there was a production that was going to bring me back to the theater, it was going to be that one.
Nice.
And yeah, so Joseph the Dreamer, I think, happened around the 80s, late 80s.
Mhm.
And it was originally, the title role was originally by Gary Valenciano.
Oh wow.
And I know you had a conversation with him. I was checking you guys out, and I saw you had a conversation. He was the original Joseph.
I didn't know.
I did. I had a little read.
Oh, right.
I was really psyched.
So, just being able to do that role that he once performed was already a big thing for me. And just the music, it's a classic, over here. And it was just such a great opportunity to be a part of it and to revive it, because we didn't just we didn't just redo the musical. We kind of
Did a revival show.
changed the music, made it more current, and just the whole staging of it was this new adaptation for the new younger kids of today. And so it was nice. It was amazing to be a part of it.
Taking risk, I'd imagine, as well, in between, right? When you make it like a revival show, you got to take some risk in like changing and modernizing things. So at least from what I've heard, people enjoyed it. So
yeah, and there were really big shoes to fill,
Indeed.
So we're really glad that it became really successful, that we were gonna have a rerun of it. Unfortunately, the lockdowns happened, and hopefully when this thing is all over, we get to do the rerun real soon.
That would be amazing. I think having the opportunity to do a show that has already marked, set a mark in history, like in the artistic part of history itself, kind of like puts you in a different perspective of how you see things differently. You have to, take the original cast ideas and takes on the characters and then kind of give it your own twist and stuff. I cannot imagine the level of pressure you were under. Honestly, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
We actually we changed a lot of things since it was made in the 80s. Some of the jokes didn't work anymore.
Of course.
Some of the stuff didn't sound right. Some of the music sounded like it came from the 80s with all the synths and all that stuff. So it was really risky and really scary for us to do. And it was a group effort. Like, we weren't starting from scratch, but in a way it did feel like it.
Yeah.
Because
sometimes it's harder, isn't it?
Yeah, we had the skeleton of the show, but we had to put some new stuff in there, and it was all risk. And it paid off. Oh, yeah.
Did you speak to Gary when you were kind of like preparing for it?
Oh yeah, I did. So the director of the show is actually his son.
Oh right, Piolo, right?
Yeah.
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 Paolo.
Sorry, my bad. My bad. I apologize.
Yeah.
God.
So he was well aware of what we were doing, and the night that he watched the show was probably the most nerve-wracking for me.
Jesus.
Like, perform in front of him with everything that he knows about the show, and just it was crazy. But
bloody hell.
Yeah.
How long did it take you guys to bring everything back to life? Like, what was the rehearsal process and everything until the first show?
The rehearsal process, probably about 2 months, but since the inception, I would say, of wanting to revive the show, probably years.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Whoa, dude.
That's cool, man. That's so cool.
It's so interesting to me when, like, because it's super intriguing when people like you have. I guess you do get nervous every now and then because you're human, but it's like when you do so much, dude, to a certain extent, when you do have those moments, maybe Gary's watching you, and then that's when you feel the nerves. They always amuse me, because it's like, we're talking right now to someone who's been in stage thousands of times, so the fact that you do get nervous is still funny to me. But is there any other moments then in your music when you kind of transition into perhaps more mainstream things that it hit you the same magnitude? You were like, oh my God, this is a huge deal. Perhaps you got nervous in one of those stages, but when you were doing music instead of theater this time, is there any moments like that?
Yeah, absolutely. when I joined the singing competition where I started,
Oh no.
I had not joined any other singing competitions in my life. I wasn't a competition singer, you know, like most of them were, because competitions here are huge. It's a huge thing. In every city, they have these fiestas where they have singing competitions,
Right.
So cool.
and yeah, these and they're really really small kids with really huge voices singing, or you know, I will always love you, and those type of big songs. And I didn't come from that kind of background. I just knew uh you know, musical theater, and
Yeah.
so and I kind of just like went in there and just kind of had to, like I said earlier, adapt to what was going on around me. And yeah, I remember getting nervous every single time before and
Yeah.
after performances. And I still do, man. I mean, to this day, I think I still get nervous a lot. I like that it's that way. Not nervous enough to paralyze me,
Mhm.
uh, in you know, and keeping me from doing what I'm supposed to be doing on stage. But it's more of like being nervous out of
Excitement.
uh, yeah, it's fear and excitement at the same
Mhm.
time. Uh, and yeah, I think it's healthy to be nervous about things. You
I
know,
think so
uh,
too.
the day I stop being nervous, I would say, is the day I become comfortable, which is not a good place to be. Uh, and so I'm all for that.
Especially in the music industry, if you become comfortable, I think that is perhaps the worst position to be in, because
Hmm.
the more, you know, the more I observe just the music industry, not just in different countries of the world, but just worldwide, it's ruthless and it moves so fast, you know. So becoming comfortable is probably, I guess, the
It's
worst
a death
mistakes.
sentence.
There was, I think you had a coach, Ballet, who he used to say, what is it you always say? It's like, if the day you stop being nervous is the day you stop caring, as well.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah, that one of the things that marked me when I was growing up, one of my directors on stage often used to say, the day that you get nervous is literally the day that you should quit, because that means that you don't care
The
anymore.
day that you stop getting nervous.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, the stuff that you're getting nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I meant to, wrong way round. But yeah, so it's that idea of using that energy to actually fuel the performance, because a lot of the
yeah,
people, misunderstand the emotion of uh, butterflies before you go on stage, and with fear itself and that paralyzing thought. So because we grew up also similar to you as children performing, a lot of the times, we used to get the idea mixed up of like feeling nervous meant that we were afraid. So the people around us used to change that thought. It's not afraid, it's that you're excited, you're looking forward to what's about to happen. So you've worked so hard, now it's the time for you to settle in that,
Kind of
all the
relax, yeah.
hard work that you've done. Yeah.
yeah. No, I agree. If you stop being nervous, that just means you stop
You
wanting
stop
to try.
caring. Yeah.
And yeah, there's so much. It's an energy that you can tap into, right? Like all
Absolutely.
that, the butterflies in your stomach is a great way to fuel you on
You got
stage.
you got any like routines that you do before you go on stage, or any like rituals?
Or does it change depending on
Um,
the environment? Because I find in theater, you must have a set of like routine that you must do, like, because I think theater, it has completely different requirements when it comes to performing. But for like singing in like live stages and like tours and stuff, it requires a set of completely different things. Do you have two sets of rituals, or does it basically around surround the same things?
yeah, I would say they're kind of similar, but they're different.
Mm.
So, um, what I liked about one of the things I liked about going back to the theater, doing Juice the Dreamer, is the kind of preparation that you do before going on stage. Like it's an actual. At this time we warm up.
Yeah.
At this time we do vocal warm-ups. At this, you do all of these exercises in order, and I think that's what I loved about it, because just doing music on your own, going on stage, doing a concert, you kind of just get into your own zone, do it at your own time, warm up when you want to. You kind of just get into the vibe mentally, and have fun and feel good, and make sure that you're in this good mental and physical space where you can engage your audience and stuff like that. But I kind of, so going back into the theater, I like that. I like the order, the structure that we had, and it's a little different, but I guess it's the same as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and it makes sense though. That's why I had to make the different, like, make a point of how different they are, because yeah, in theater everything's structurized,
A bit more
everything is,
regimented, right?
yeah, everything's
Yeah.
scheduled, because time is gold.
Yeah.
But in live performances, I feel like with live music, when you're touring or you're doing concerts and stuff like that, it's a bit more like you explained it. It's about the vibe, is how you build yourself to connect with the audience, is completely different way of communication, and you have to be one with the environment. And I find that in theater you have to be more focused. It's a bit more like tunnel vision type of focus. So all of these regimented exercises and the way that they're scheduled, they all help to really focus your mind on what's about to happen. Because everything's scripted in theater, isn't it? It's not like in live music where everything is,
You
it
roll
can
with the
be,
punches.
yeah,
Yeah.
it can be unscripted. You have an idea of where it's gonna go, but you can do as much as you want and live into as you want to, right? So yeah, it's so cool to hear both of your perspectives on it.
And I think I would say one of the differences as well is that as a solo artist, you only have to worry about uh, yourself because you're a solo artist. But when you're part of a theater company, you're all working towards one same goal, and that is to tell the story. And so it's not about you; it's about your part in doing your part in telling this story. So it's kind of like it's a group effort. It's a combined effort to make art. And so the training, the rehearsals, you all do it together. You build this story with them. So you do everything together. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot more structure in that manner, I would say, as opposed to uh, being solo and creating and singing concerts and doing a show on your own.
Have you been doing those? Because in sort of the lockdowns that have been happening throughout the year, have you been doing the online gigs and stuff like that, or
Yeah,
have you kind of been taking time to? Because I know you've been making music, but
yeah. At this point, uh, it's the most that we could do. Lockdowns here are pretty rigid, I would say. Excuse me.
of course.
And yeah, a lot of digital shows, digital concerts. I did one in August. It
Nice.
was a digital concert called Four Hearts with three other artists, and we did this digital show, short digital concert, and it was nice. It's a little different, without having a real audience, a real
Yeah.
crowd in
Yeah.
front of you. It's actually it's not a little different. It's very different.
Yeah.
So different.
It's not the same, man. Like there's
No,
no
it's
you
not.
just you want to see faces, you want to look at people's eyes, you want to sing,
Mm.
and you want to perform for them. But over here, it's like shooting a music video every time, and it's kind of weird. But I mean, it's what we have now, and we're really lucky to be doing these
How's the
digital shows.
preparation for those concerts? I always like to know, what's the mindset that you all, because you were doing it with three other artists. So was the constant mindset for approaching an online concert like that?
Um, I would say we had to be specifically aware of how we were connecting
Okay.
to the audience, because there's a barrier of not really being there and just looking through a screen. And so it's about, how to engage your audience without making them feel like they're, because sometimes when you're watching a digital show, right, on on your computer, it's gonna look like you're watching YouTube. It's like watching a clip, like
Yeah.
not really there, right? And so we had to tailor make it so that we continuously engage with the people. Throw them questions that they can answer, create conversations that people can relate to. Um, I guess that's kind of uh, how it's different with doing live shows. You don't have to do all of that when you're face to face with someone,
Of course.
but it's one of the hurdles and difficulties that we had doing these shows.
It's been really interesting actually seeing even though it's been a really difficult year just for musicians in general. I mean, at this point, nearly 2 years, right? Actually 2 years. Yeah, it's been really interesting to see that adaptation process and what it brings out, right? Like we saw, for example, Jada's first online concert, which was in June, and it was a really good piece of like video content. It was really well made. And then we've seen other concerts which are a bit more, they feel more like television shows, where they do have a host and it's a bit more conversation driven, and then there's music. And it's been very interesting to see. I think your concert was more interactive perhaps than the usual concert, so it's been so interesting to see
different takes on the idea
on
of
the idea.
Yeah,
because during difficult times, right, that's when usually a good idea sparks or people refine skills because there's no other choice. So to a certain extent, I do feel obviously horrendous, and I hope this doesn't fucking happen again, mate, but at the same time I feel it has some, in some weird way, made a lot of people better in online productions.
Yes, 100%. Like on a personal level, I agree with that because when the first lockdown happened and everything turned to digital shows, I had to learn how to set up lights, record my own shit. Excuse me, can I say that?
Go ahead. It's
Sam,
fine.
you're in my show now, Sam. You can say whatever you want.
All right, cool. Fuck yeah. But yeah, I had to learn how to do all of this like behind the scenes stuff, and you have to think outside of the box in terms of being creative with ideas and concepts and stuff like that. And I think collectively we all had to push ourselves in that way, and it is helping a lot of us be more creative and pushing us even further.
Well, it's like you said, it's like all of a sudden you're becoming your own
crew.
producer, your own crew, your own makeup artist, your own stylist, your own light engineer. So in a weird sense, it has made, I feel, a lot of musicians and artists kind of take hold of their creativity and maximize it. But yeah, I do hope it doesn't happen again, to be fair. Like, you know what I mean? I'm kind of fed up of it at this point, but it has shown some improvement, though, I feel, because technology is inevitable, though. Sort of the technology revolution that's been happening. I think if this didn't prove that point, that we could all essentially be stuck in a bubble and still consume content. So who knows what the hell the next 25 years are going to look like?
Absolutely.
So it's put stuff into perspective.
But it's crazy though, because I was talking to other artists from other parts of the world as well, and they were saying, it's crazy because they have been, in the industry making their own music for like 30 plus years, and then they had never set up a mic in their lives, or they have never had to handle Bluetooth lights or anything like that before. And
that was me.
Yeah, and it's crazy though. I think we grew up as well in the same thing,
man.
Same thing. We showed up in the places, things were already done. You just had to do what you came to do, right?
Yeah.
Showed up to the green room, look pretty, do your thing, get off, and that's fine. But then this whole thing happened, then you have to become so like
multifaceted.
Yeah. And then I was talking to my friends, and they were saying, it's interesting because of this whole pandemic thing and having to set up your own thing and create by your own self, when you go back to making music videos or making your own music, you're way more
You're better.
detail. Yeah, you have more details. You expect more from your surroundings because you have done it yourself. So now you want things to look a different way, a certain thing, you know.
So that leads us then, I feel, Sam, nicely into your latest track.
Yeah.
What was kind of, yeah, the inspiration process and the creative process of working with Moophs, who we're a big fan of. He's a big boss.
Amazing.
But what was the process of creating?
Okay, well, that song actually I worked with Moophs years back, like pre-pandemic.
Nice.
Yeah, and I never got to release it. I did a concert mid 2019, and I wanted to perform that song at the show. I wanted to make a new song for the show.
Nice.
Okay.
And so I started working on it with Moophs before that concert, and unfortunately I wasn't able to finish it in time, and so I didn't get to sing it then. And so I put it on the show, and I have a lot of those. I'm the type of person that works on something, doesn't really finish it right away, and work on a new thing. I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of how it works. When I get stuck with something, put it on the shelf, start a new one. And so the pandemic has given us so much time on our hands that I got to revisit some of the stuff that I didn't get to finish, and so I finished it over the pandemic and released it. So I just wanted to create a song that I could that I had the intention of singing at a concert, big venue, fun, people jumping up and down, just a fun party song. And yeah, that's why I wanted it to have that kind of energy. And yeah, we released it a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought it might be fun to check it out together, sort of react to it together, and then you can give us like I don't know, maybe your thoughts behind the lyrics and kind of what the whole process of making it was.
Yeah.
Dope. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's give it a watch.
Let's have a look. Wait.
I always love doing this, but it's always funny because sometimes like artists don't like listening to themselves. You know?
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I like listening to the studio when it's done, but when it's that, I probably wouldn't play it in the car, just me driving alone. But I mean, it's kind of weird. For the show, I'll do it for you guys for sure.
Thanks, brother.
Yes.
Thanks. But it's so hilarious to me. Everyone always says that, you know, other people that are a bit like that, like comedians are a bit like that. Like they never look at their sets unless they're actually like studying it or stuff like that. But it's so funny to me.
It is a bit weird. It's like Inception-y.
Yeah. I don't watch any of my videos.
What the
Like,
heck?
I can't watch myself perform. I love doing it. I can't watch it.
Well, luckily this is a lyrics video, so it should be fine.
Let's have a look.
Because I mean, given your background in musical theater, I'd imagine
Dance.
Yeah, you're very keen on dancing. I'd imagine in your shows. Like sometimes in your shows, do you have like sort of dance breaks and stuff like that, or do you mainly focus on the shows more kind of vocal forward type of thing, or are you one of those people that brings that type of dancing with the dancers backgrounds and stuff like that?
Almost all the time, and yeah, I just love to dance for sure, and I like bringing that kind of energy on stage, and it's weird that most of the songs that I have been releasing in the past few years are all kind of slower R&B stuff, danceable stuff, but from time to time I do like making these tracks that I can really dance to.
Yeah, nice.
So what's the vision? Like, are we getting more new songs like this? Or,
yeah, that's a good question, right?
Or are we, are we mixing it up with, what you're used to making before, the old R&B, or are we getting more the dance Sam? I would love that.
Yeah, I'm not actually quite sure. I made if in a perfect world, I would be doing all of it all the time
Right. Yeah.
at the same time. But I don't like to limit myself into just one thing, or genres or sounds or whatever. And so whatever feels right and good and something that I like, something real, something, um, whatever I want to make at that point in time, I will do it. So
Good.
I can't tell for sure, but there's gonna be more of many stuff. I would say many other stuff.
Something I like, something I like to ask, brother, is
Yeah.
what are your kind of music influences? What, you know, when you were growing up, especially starting so young, maybe what were you exposed to and listening to that you feel perhaps have shaped you into the person that
Yeah.
artists perhaps that have shaped into the artist you are right now?
Yeah. It was MJ for me growing
Michael
up.
Jackson, right?
Yeah, because just everything about it, from the music to his performances, the concerts, the big iconic concerts, the whole the iconic fashion, the outfits, all of that. I was a huge fan, and so I think that's something that's a big part of my musicality and just my expression, I guess, as an artist. And I think that somehow still reflects in my shows and in what I do. He's just in general, he's just had such a huge impact in culture and music. And I was one of those kids that really looked up to MJ. And yeah, unfortunately I never got to saw him live. I never got to meet him. But yeah, he's number one on my list for sure.
You really notice how like influential that man was when you look at like, I mean, in South America where we're from in Venezuela, he was just as influential as he was in the Philippines, and just as influential in the Philippines as he was in America, and in America just as influential as he was in Japan. And it's like he's like a really core example of like a worldwide icon. It's like unbelievable what that man was able to achieve through his music.
Yeah.
You know?
And when you really think about it, this was during a time when virality online or the internet wasn't a thing.
Didn't exist.
Absolutely.
What you had to do to be that worldwide and be so recognizable had to be something so huge.
Absolutely.
and you know, culture changing. And so I don't think that could be replicated, and that only happens like once in, you know, to a few people in one generation.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I find that the fact that, you know, the world used to tune in at a specific time to watch the premiering of a music video. It was such a fascinating idea today, but
given the difficulties of technology at the time. Yeah.
Absolutely, the fact that you had like 10 people in one room watching the same music video at the same time from different parts of the planet, that's absolutely nuts to me.
You know, something tells me that it might be because the artists from those days are not as visible, or they're much more scarce than the artists that we have today. Like the artists that we have today, you see them everywhere. There's like an overload of the artists, right? You see them on your phones, you watch TV, it's online, watch them at whatever time. And so you kind of get used to that, as opposed to before when you really had to go to the show to see MJ. So wouldn't you think that's because it's a different kind of excitement, and there's this different you know, passion for loving these artists so much because they're so hard to reach and you never really see them, I guess.
Well,
that is a brilliant point. I hadn't actually thought about that.
I guess you would be right, Sam, because sort of scarcity does
create rarity.
Create rarity, and then that rarity turns into heart-throbbing passion and support, you know. So
you're correct. I mean, I had never really thought about it.
There are videos of MJ fans just crying and passing out watching him. Because they know that's probably the only time they get to see him in their whole life.
Yeah.
You know, we see whoever we want at any given time, and it's like them doing normal stuff like cooking or like sitting on the ground playing checkers or whatever. You know.
Yes, Sam. I've seen Chris Brown played checkers on the floor here.
I don't know why I chose checkers, but I don't even play that.
Domino, it's fine.
No, but I think you're right, mate. Like it's very bizarre the effect of
social media
that we sometimes don't even think of, and unless you would have brought it up, it would have never come to my head.
Me neither. I hadn't even thought about it.
And also, then if you look at the music industry, and also people are overstimulated in music, and auditory experiences are no longer as impactful as perhaps they were in the 80s, 70s, 60s, and 50s, because
it wasn't as accessible.
Yeah, because it wasn't accessible,
Yeah, and so I guess there's good and bad with that. I think in a way it's made a lot of these artists more human. Like you see them as normal people doing normal stuff in their normal homes, and that's nice. It's humanizing.
Well, look at the conversation we're having right now, Sam. I'm sure many people that have posters of you in their house, and absolutely.
I have no posters, anything at all. Yeah.
No, but I'm sure people that absolutely adore you, and we look up to people like you, and the people that we've had the awesome privilege to speak to, and it wouldn't be possible due to kind of how the industry is operating right now and technology and stuff like that. So definitely there's some positives, but I like your point, which I guess would be kind of like a negative at the moment, but it's a very interesting observation that I hadn't seen before.
Well, I think it comes from it's that idea of a constantly creating something different, making something out of the blue. I find that because we are now so constantly bombarded by content and music videos and ideas, and there's this whole thought that nothing's ever original because it came from somewhere else, and you're constantly recycling ideas, and the industry is all about feeding off of each other and making something that perhaps has already been made before, but giving it your own stamp. And it's true, it's kind of like constantly overloaded. But I also find that that's also creating a brand new generation of artists that are so creative, and they're not afraid of push boundaries. I mean, look at what you did and Moophs created in the track. It didn't need to change, but because you guys have been constantly stimulated by different influences, you come up with these brilliant ideas.
And also keeping the audience now, like the audience attention span, it's a bit harder, keeping them entertained. It's way harder just through audio. It's way harder than before. So you do have to take way more risk,
Yeah, that's true. I 100% agree. Like with any tool, there's good and bad that comes with it.
Really?
And the internet technology is a really powerful tool to do anything. And so it comes with a lot of good, also comes with a lot of bad. But we know how to use it. We get to create really cool stuff and get to connect with other people that you otherwise wouldn't be able to connect with. And so, yeah.
Do you feel perhaps overstimulated too sometimes of creativity, and maybe too much of the whole like
social media?
Yeah, like
that happens
do you sometimes have to take breaks, or how do you approach, and maybe does it hurt your creativity in certain aspects?
Oh yeah, 100%. There's so much information, so much power in the palm of your hands, right? And it just kind of like, if you're not really paying attention, you could really waste a lot of time.
That's so true.
It's super dulling too. Like all of this information, I don't think our brains are ready to be absorbing this much shit all the time, right? And so it just turns your brain into, it melts your brain, and you become the opposite of being creative, really. And so yeah, everything in moderation, I believe, including moderation.
So how do you keep yourself in check? Like, how do you put yourself in like, okay, now working moods, or like, all right, so now I'm gonna create, I'm not gonna be watching or being exposed to certain things or how do you approach the whole creativity aspect of having the world at the palm of your hands constantly?
I think the most important thing, and I'm not perfect at it. It's something that I'm continuously working on is balance,
Mm.
really. I think a good routine will always put you uh, you keep on track if you have a good routine. Waking up at a certain time, um, and doing having eating at a certain time, doing work at a certain time, chilling at a certain time. Um, I'm not sure if that works for everybody, but I think a good routine will help sort things out and put things together.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing it from an artist, because people like you who are so creative, because what I find is sometimes when you speak to people who are natural creatives like yourself and my sister and stuff, and I'm a bit more, I guess, on the pragmatic side, like a bit more. I
Yeah.
don't seem to be as creative as you guys, but I'm a drummer, I'm a percussionist, so I
Mm.
guess there is some creativity in there, but it's a bit more, I don't know, I guess structurized. So I'm not as free flowing as you guys, which I to some extent I'm jealous of, but also it's so different on how routines for certain people who are natural creatives just doesn't work, because they
Yeah.
want to be non-stop creating.
Mm.
But then there are other creators like yourself in which they, if routines,
Because of structure, they become the most productive.
exactly, and then that helps them become more creative. So I mean, I guess we're being a bit redundant here, everything in moderation and whatever works for you, but it's super interesting to me seeing the difference in different types of creatives, even if they are both singers or even if they are both actors or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think it's because I really lean a lot towards the non-structure side.
Oh, right.
I
Yeah.
really want to create a routine for myself just to like even it out. Um, yeah, and I do notice that a lot of creative people don't follow a lot of structure, because to be creative, you kind of have to
Break boundaries, brother. You
break
have to.
boundaries.
Yeah.
You have to think outside of boundaries and boxes, and
Mhm.
that kind of reflects how you manage your time and what you do.
It's so true. I
Uh,
actually personally I find it so difficult to stick to structure. Oh
mm,
God. Like for me the whole idea of like, high school was a nightmare to me. Like,
yeah,
everything's like scheduled and I was like, can I just dance, please? Like I
yeah,
just don't want to do this anymore. But it's yeah, I had to like understand that in order to be productive, you also need to structurize yourself in certain ways, and yeah, it's a complicated mindset, and I think it, everybody has their own way of approaching it, and once you get used to it, though, once you get used to it, you're
Comes
like,
with time, right?
you know what, waking up at 7 is not so bad.
no, well, at this point, that's way too early for me.
Yeah. Thanks,
There's no
Sam.
way I'm waking up at 10.
Thanks, Sam. I thought no one was gonna say it. No, waking up at 7 is still fucked. It's not nice.
I love waking up early. I find that if I'm sleeping in, that's it. My whole day is like out the window. Can't do anything after that.
No.
That's true.
Yeah, nah. What did you go to? Were you homeschooled because you were sort of in TV from such a young age, or were you going to school normally?
Yes, yes. For most of my schooling years, from like grade um, maybe 5, 6 to high school, I was, yeah.
All
Uh,
right.
Homeschooled.
Yes.
Oh, right, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's it. That seems to be like,
How
well,
was?
especially if you go in the industry for from such a young age. What was that like? Because
Mhm.
not kind of like going there,
Um,
because I've never been homeschooled, so I don't know.
it was kind of weird, I would say, because I knew what it was like to go to school, go to
All
regular,
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and uh, all of a sudden, the next year you go into homeschooling where you had to study everything in front of the computer.
Yeah.
I would bring it on set. I would be filming stuff on TV sets and movie sets. I would bring it with me in between takes. I was studying. I
Oh,
was
bloody
answering
hell.
and writing shit and watching videos of teachers and stuff like that. It wasn't fun, but it had to work for me during
Yeah.
during that time. Um, but there was some good stuff there's some good stuff about homeschooling that uh, really helped me out as well. It's different from regular schooling, but there's good and bad that comes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, didn't miss out much.
Well, Vale didn't enjoy high school at
Didn't miss
all.
out on much. I would have rather been homeschool, and because it's balancing the artistic side of things and work and the professional side of your career, as well as like the whole thing about high school. High school's already taxing as a whole, and then you add the fact that you work on TV every day, and then everybody's watching you, and everybody has something to say, and you're like, you know what? I'd rather not. But that was just me.
I loved it, but I think I was also a wild kid. Like I was a bizarre kid. Like, I don't know, always throwing fucking rubbers at the teachers and being a bit nuts. So I enjoyed it, but when Bale when she came here to Europe and she started doing musical theater, I did tennis in an academy where everyone was being homeschooled, and but I was a bit older, and I would always kind of converse to them, and they would always ask me, it's like, what is it like to, because they had always been homeschooled since 3.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So at least you saw kind of like both sides. So maybe you got more of a shock rather than you never knew what you were missing out on. But so you kind of did know what you were missing out on, which I think maybe sucked a little, but
yeah. I was missing out on just, my friends. Just having people around me, and studying with them. Just the whole experience of grade school and high school. It was weird going through it alone.
Mm-hmm.
It felt a lot like work.
Yeah.
yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
If you think about it, a lot, yeah. Is there
your cares about this, but so yeah.
Is there because I think you're, I mean, again, this is like, it's really interesting to see kind of like your new creations and like, leaning a bit more towards perhaps what you would have made in the past. But what's maybe the future? What kind of like your objectives? Because you have accomplished quite a lot of stuff already. So I always find it interesting to know artists that have been in the industry for so long. I mean, I think at this point for you, it's been 20 plus years, right?
God, that's so beautiful.
Dude, that's a fuckload of years, dude. And I know you're not old, you're young. You're like 30 something.
I'm 28.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. So so you've been doing this for a really long time. So what are kind of your objectives in the future, and what do you hope to accomplish perhaps, in the next years?
Yeah, no, it's kind of weird and funny to me when people say, or when I realize that I've been doing this for that time, because it sounds long.
Yeah.
Sounds like
so long.
Sounds like many years, but in many ways, I feel like I'm still in the very early stages of my career.
Yeah,
because there's just so much more to do and so much more to learn, so much more to grow into. More music. Like I said earlier, I don't like to limit myself into just one thing or one type of genre. What's cool about the scene here in the Philippines, where I'm at, is that there's so many new music coming out, so many different artists, so many different people are being recognized, and so it's so vibrant, and it's so creative, and also different. But and it's nice to be a part of that, to be contributing into the growth of where music is going. And it's going to be a fun ride of just creating and new discoveries and new music and new sounds with different people.
That's amazing. I think that's the best approach, I suppose, not putting a limit upon what the future can hold. I think it's super cool. I'm super excited to see what the future holds for you. I mean, this is just a snippet of a fantastic brand new set of music from you, and I think it's beautiful. It's
because
inspiring.
arguably your prime years are coming.
That's right.
That in theory, right? It's like you're 28, like from 28 to like 31. That's usually when you see like mind and body truly connect by science. Apparently, I don't know. Don't quote me on this, mate. But so we're yet to see, I guess, the prime. So it's super interesting.
It's exciting.
Really exciting to kind of see what's next. And I you have all of our support, man. It's really
100%.
really enjoyable to check out your music. So and I hope the bizarre thing about the podcast sometimes, Sam, is like we have people watching from all over the world. It's really bizarre. It's like sometimes people from Algeria, they're like, wow, I just found out, about this new artist, maybe from the Philippines or Japan or whatever, or Brazil. And then you're like, what the fuck, Algeria? Or like, I'm from yeah, I don't know,
small
France.
town in France, yeah.
And it's like, it's very bizarre. So I feel as well, I always mention it to artists from specific industries that I feel now, like in this next couple of 4 years, it's gonna be more like that new talent that's coming as well in the Philippines. Like you say, everyone's coming to music. I really feel there's no longer gonna be any limitations of kind of geographical. I think it's all gonna be just music, just worldwide music. So that then carries at its heart culture of the Philippines and language and stuff like that. So it's truly exciting what's coming next, I feel.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And we get to do stuff like this. You get to put music out for the whole world to hear. We have so much access to so many different things, and that just makes for new possibilities, of different people from different parts of the world sharing ideas and exchanging different information. And so right. It's a good time to be in. Despite everything that's going on, it's a good time.
You a fan of maybe any, like, this sort of new wave of sound in the Philippines of, like, I don't know, new artists are coming out all the time. Anyone that kind of has caught your ear lately, or someone that we should check out? I always like asking what people have on their playlist because it's interesting to us.
Okay, just under Tarshir, there's so many different artists that you can check out. You guys have seen Inigo.
Yep.
And Kiana.
Yep.
Yeah,
her new
EP
is like insane good.
Yeah, I mean,
so good.
I'm surprised that you guys are aware of what's going on around here. That's really cool.
We try, man. We try because it's class music.
It is ridiculously good stuff, and I think it's perhaps one of my favorite industries in the world right now. Like, I find that you guys have some of the coolest musical pedigree, and when it comes to vocals, of course, you're already crowned as like the best singers in the world. Yeah, we know it, but your quality of music is just fantastic.
We're not saying it to be nice, man. I mean it. I think it's genuinely, I think the Philippines has the highest pedigree of singing and the highest at the moment
quality of music,
because you guys can perform live. For some reason, the audience there in the Philippines also appreciates live music.
And that's
perhaps even more than studio music. And that's like a gem, bro. That's what you want. You want people to listen to you live, and you want the artists that you worship and you are a fan of to be able to deliver what they produced in a disc and, or, nowadays on a record, like you stream live, and you wanted to do it better. And the Philippines seems to be one of the only industries in the world, in my eyes at the moment,
consistently does it.
That does that. So
it's really interesting that you guys say that, because you're exposed to different cultures, different music, for sure. And it's interesting to see a perspective from someone from outside of the country seeing that. And I think that is true. I know so many great powerhouse big belter singers, and it's just some of the best that I've heard. And the audience here, for sure, I think they're harder to please than when we perform outside.
Yep.
The country. So it's I guess us being really critical of ourselves, I guess, helps us
with excellence.
Yeah.
I think also as well, Sam, is like not just with power vocals, but this last 6-7 years, R&B has become a big deal. I guess also now the alternative scene music, is kind of making a strong comeback. Like, the guys of Ben and well, they don't make, I guess
it's folk. It's like folk Ben and Ben makes folk,
but the lack of power vocals, I feel, in the Philippines now is no longer an issue for popularity, because I think sometimes discussing with artists and other labels and stuff is like, if to a certain extent, there's this belief that if you want to be a hit maker in that industry, you have to be you have to be a belter, have pipes, but I think now that's kind of being proved incorrectly, because you're getting R&B songs becoming very popular, hip hop songs becoming very popular, folk songs becoming very popular, alternative. So I think in general, just the evolution of the music industry there in the Philippines with its pedigree of live music, it's no wonder, given our background, that we enjoy that scene probably the best out of all the scenes that we've checked out through the podcast and also through our upbringing. And I think fair to say, and I think other people would agree, we've checked out quite a few fucking countries in the podcast. So
far,
it's adamant to what the Philippines is doing at the moment.
Well, thank you for putting all of these artists into your show and then giving them a platform to speak about their music and all of that. We really appreciate it.
No, you guys are freaking amazing.
It's our honor.
It's a pleasure, absolutely. And it's fantastic to get a chance to talk to you guys as well. Like talk to you, Sam, and see all your background and how that have built you as an artist today. It's truly inspirational, and I thank you for taking the time to spend a little time with us too and share your story with the world. It's fantastic, honestly.
Of course, thank you. I hope you guys invite me again. I would love to have a conversation with you.
Absolutely, anytime.
Actually, I keep saying this, but as soon as the travel regulations become a bit easier, I want to bring bring you guys to London and let's do this in person, man, and let's jam and let's make music and let's also get the podcast, but in person. Because to be fair, mate, I'm not a big fan of the whole Zoom thing.
Yeah, neither am I.
So
I'm in London. I know who to call then.
Definitely.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much, Sam. If you want to share maybe like your social media or anything for people to follow you.
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Sam_Concepcion, and check me out. Hit me up. Thanks.
Nice. I love it. Thank you so much, Sam.
Ladies and gents, Sam Concepcion. Thank you so much, brother.